Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our to Generations Imhoff and our presentation of the SCI program, as well as our launching of our Juniors to Giants program at our campus. It's wonderful to have so many people here today, actually joining us in person as well as a number of you joining us online for the webinar as well. So welcome to Generations Imhoff. It's fantastic, as I said, fantastic to have a great group of people here interested in our alternate pathway that we're adding to the mix this year as well. I've got the pleasure of introducing Jevron Epstein and Sandra, who are both going to be speaking today, as well as some of our current Juniors to Giants program students who have gone through some of the processes as well. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome Jevron to the stage.
No, it's on? Okay. It's very strange doing this, having a conversation with a few people here. I don't know who's behind the camera. And it's been an interesting day. Before we met with some of the parents here, we had a conversation with some of the educational staff about this program, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the questions they were asked was, could we first fix the internet? And then let's look at getting something new. And it's quite interesting because we spent about 20 minutes trying to put the screen on. And I think this is reflective of the world that we currently live in. There's so much, there's such a demand, everything's happening at fast pace. The minute parents hear that there's something new, it's the removing of Cambridge, or there's something new that's coming onto the agenda, etc. And I think I want to start off by saying that this is not new, first of all. It's not an agenda item. It's an option and an opportunity for parents that want to understand how the actual educational framework into international higher education is made up and constituted. So I'm going to start off by explaining what SCI is. So SCI, by definition, is a system of instruments. So what SCI means is that a centimeter equals the same thing as a meter. They're both units of measurement of the same quantity, or of the same item, not necessarily the same quantity. That being said, they can mean different things. And that's no different to what the SCI Institute allows for. It allows for qualifications that are examinable, qualifications that are non-examinable, that mean the same thing, that hold the same weight, and get to the same outcome. What this option is for students that might decide that they don't want to sit high-stakes examinations, students that definitively know that they want to go into business, students that definitively know they want to go into a career in IT and computing, students that definitively know they want to become game designers, students that know that they want to become educators. It's for those students that understand the theme of employment that they're looking for would choose this route. Not necessarily the students, for argument's sake, who feel that they are not constituted to write high-stakes examinations. I've often been told this is the option for students that can't do Cambridge. That is not the case. It is the exact same thing as Cambridge. It's just designed differently with regards to assessment and purpose. So obviously I've explained a little bit in terms of what the SCI pathway is. It is a unique grouping of international qualifications and local qualifications that are made available on our school property. It also brings tertiary education into secondary education. What that means is it allows for students to engage with tertiary education material, subjects like academic reading and writing, introduction modules into economics, statistics, mathematics, as well as accounting, business psychology, business, as well as industrial psychology. So it houses all of these qualifications, and it all sits within a digital space, but taught by real people. So the SCI pathway constitutes a grouping of international access qualifications. So the definition of an international access qualification is exactly that. It provides access into higher education on an international basis. For the definition of an A-level is also an international access qualification. If a student is generally doing an A-level in South Africa, they are generally looking at going to study abroad. South African universities all allow for AS subjects as the qualification of entry point into a South African university. All A-levels do is it broadens the horizon to international destinations and also is weighed more from an academic perspective with regard to pointing structures in other universities. A-levels are also constituted as first-year varsity subjects, where you also get A2 levels, which is also an expansion once again of the A-level. Cambridge itself has a variation of other qualifications. It used to have a pre-U qualification that allowed you to prepare for university, and that in itself was also an international access qualification. All of our qualifications that sit in our International Access Program are accredited by Ofqual, which sits on the UK framework, and are accredited alongside Oxford, Cambridge, and the rest of the regulatory boards in the United Kingdom. They're also registered on NARIC as well as any other international board when it comes to educational understanding and equivalency allowances. Okay, so this gives us a little bit more detail in terms of what our international access qualifications are. An international access qualification, no different to an A-level, is always owned or managed by a regulation board, which is generally an examination board or an assessment board. A high-stakes assessment board is an example of Cambridge Assessment, where the ATHE is also an assessment board, but it's not a high-stakes assessment board. The differentiator between the two is that Cambridge relies on high-stake examinations, which constitute more than 80% of the students' results, where the ATHE require a portfolio of evidence. The reason that these two are described differently within the framework of the Ofqual qualifications is that Cambridge itself is a university, where these qualifications, the ATHE as well as Cambridge Assessment, sit in a pre-university space, which govern the schooling space going into higher education. In South Africa, our structures, which is Umalusi, only accredit our schooling structures to NQF level 4, which is school matric. In the UK, it takes you all the way up to second year varsity. So there's a little bit of an overflow between what the UK are allowed and what South Africa allows. It's in that space that we have opened up the opportunity for international access qualifications. I'm giving you a lot of theoretical and academic knowledge, but we'll get into some practical components of it shortly. Okay, so the purpose of an international access qualification is, one, to provide access into higher education, two, to provide practical understanding of what is required in higher education. Some of the biggest flaws that we've seen of students leaving school and going to university is the lack of academic reading and writing, the ability to utilize the tools that are presented to them in university, as most of the work is done online, and thirdly is the engagement between content taught in secondary education and content experienced in tertiary education. The way that the questions are asked is also very different, and the context body of knowledge is superiorly different, specifically when it's coming into single subject offerings within school and then theme-based subjects in university. An example is in university, if you study business studies or business management, it constitutes a large percentage of your qualification, where in school it sits at maybe 1/7 of the qualifications that you would be studying within the school environment. So the focus is obviously a lot more, and the scope of work is a lot more broad. The application of knowledge on the basis of vocational context. So I have had a question asked to me a few times saying, is business an academic subject? And my answer is no. Business is a vocational subject. Academic is engineering. Academic is medicine. Academic is law to a certain extent, where I think business is more of a vocational qualification, because the more you do, the better you get. It's like fishing or playing tennis. That being said, the skill sets that are required within business are academic. So because of the pathway that we've customly built for our first cohort of students, we have a school excellence certificate in business and business management, and then that allows into further education in that field. What that field means, it means it can go into accounting, it can go into business management, industrial psychology, marketing, and all of the other variations that sit within the business realm. If a student decides they would like to go into an engineering field, then they would still study towards their Cambridge A-levels to allow for that capability of studying further in a conventional form of manner. Here's an example of our current qualification that we offer. We currently offer a level 3 diploma in business or business management. It sits at 120 credits. When you do a matric in South Africa, your qualification is an NQF level 4 at 120 credits. In the UK, a level 3 in the UK is the equivalent of a level 4 in South Africa. The business management qualification, 120 credits, which we currently offer on this campus, is a year-long program. Once that qualification is completed, is a portfolio of evidence that is compiled, which constitutes 6 modules. It is sent for review in the UK. It's sent back with questions. Once that material has passed at 100%, you are awarded your qualification. That qualification is sent back to South Africa. It is SAQUID, which has gone through the South African Qualification Assurance Board, and that gives you access into your further set of studies. In this process over here, we offer students the ability to do their first and second year of their degrees through us, through correspondence, and that is because of the overlap between the UK education boards versus the rigid form of South African education. What I mean by that is South African primary school and secondary education go to level 4, when the UK allows you to go up to level 5. In the third year, you would do a top-up qualification, which accounts for the credits required for a degree, and you would do this directly with a university in the UK. You can either do it via correspondence or you can do it on campus. The reason that this is important as an explanation is that if you go to South Africa, if you're studying in South Africa, and you go to UCT and you study a law degree, and you get 3 years into your 4-year law degree, you decide you're going to move to TUCS, only 50% of your qualification is allowed to be transferable. It's a rule of thumb. Where in the UK, what you can see is that you can do your first year and your second year, which is 2/3 of your qualification, and then migrate to a top-up year. And the reason this is allowed in the UK is they've built their qualifications on the ability to be stackable. Where in South Africa, we do not allow for stackable qualifications. A good example would be is if you go to varsity and you're studying a BCom, it's a 3-year degree. You finish your first 2 years, you pass well. Third year, something happens, you fail, you get nothing. And you'll often see on CVs, I've seen in the past, where it's 5 credits away from my degree. Unfortunately, it counts for nothing. Where in this environment, when you get this qualification, it is a diploma. You then get a further diploma, and then you're able to top up for your degree. I'm giving a lot of detail into this as it's important to understand the differentiator between distance-based qualifications that are domiciled in the UK versus South African qualifications. The other qualifications that we will offer will be access to IT and computing. And the reason we call them, these are access qualifications, that these top tiers here are your building blocks. They provide you international access into higher education. So we have an access into IT and computing and an access into accounting. The reason that these two are different is that these both sit at 60 credits. Now for a South African qualification, you need 120 credits. So the offering that we will have for our students is that you can do this, which is only a business qualification, or you will have to do both. These qualifications will take 4 months, and we add an extra 2 months for the assessment process of writing the portfolio of evidence. And you would then have a dual qualification that exists at 120 credits that will get you access into any business qualification or going to the accounting science or the economic science, and then more importantly into computing, so computer science. So it just allows for a little bit of variation. In times to come, we will expand our access blocks into teaching and learning, as well as travel and tourism. But for the interim period of time, these are the current access qualifications that we have. A parent has asked a question before that my child decides to complete this qualification because this is what makes most sense to me. It's the equivalent of a matric. And then my child would like to study in South Africa. So we've had students that complete this qualification that go on to Vega to study game design. Their first port of call is a higher certificate, because they cannot go directly into their first year of their degree for various reasons, other for the fact that there's no secondary language components in this subject or in this coursework, as well as that it doesn't meet the requirements of game design, which might require mathematics or another subject. So you get directly into your higher certificate, and from your higher certificate you get into actual game design. We have students that have gone to university to study BCom and economics. We've got a student over here, Tom, who's been on the video recently in his second year of economics. He finished his course at 16 and then progressed into his degree at the age of 17. Because these qualifications have got three-tier passes, you have a pass, you have a merit, and then you have a distinction. If you receive 6 distinctions for all 6 subjects, you gain automatic acceptance into your degree, where you don't have to do a higher certificate. So there are some technicalities in these qualifications, but from a simplistic perspective, these top tier darker blocks are the equivalent of a school exiting qualification that provides you access into higher education. They're designed for access, they're not designed for school exit. So the notion and the narrative of the qualification is designed to prepare you for university, not necessarily for you to pass school. So the whole way that these courses have been designed is very different. So the delivery program and how the process has been put together is that we have digitized all of the content into asynchronous form of learning, which means that the content is completely digitized, available on a laptop, smartphone, and at your fingertips. And the reason we've done that is that no matter what, if the student has the ability to progress quickly, they're able to finish their coursework quicker. There's an facilitating environment who is trained to teach the material, but they're also there to assist the student with regards to their assessment. A good example of why this works is we have had a student that has finished this course in 5 months and then progressed into their first year of varsity. And we've had another student who was very sick who took 4 years to complete the qualification. It just allows for a more robust form of a student being able to move at their own pace. That being said, because the staff member that is in place is trained to understand the content, they can move between the various different spaces. I'm going to jump around now, and I've had a parent ask me, could my child do both this and Cambridge? The answer is yes. However, the purpose of doing Cambridge is always for a reason. Are you doing Cambridge for access, or are you doing Cambridge for your son to understand the content and make it relevant in the world that they live in? And if it generally is because their child needs access into a university, I would just maybe caution towards doing a subject like Cambridge, which is delivered only on high-stakes examinations for access, versus actually understanding the material. The further qualification that we house, which is which will be new to the school, is a FET qualification. So an FET qualification is a local qualification that has the same equivalent as a matric. It's a qualification in further education and training, and it currently is through ETA. ETA is the Exercise Training Academy, which is now the Exercise Training Academy College, which is it is a fully fledged tertiary institution. It offers degrees. It was founded 20 odd years ago by Tim Noakes and Dr. Steve Harris. Dr. Steve Harris was the first person in South Africa to do a PhD in mental toughness. He was the mental coach for the Springboks in 1995, yes, when they won the World Cup, and 2007. And the whole purpose of ETA is built on a wellness backbone. So they specialize in sports science. They run things like the Sharks Academy up in Durban, and they have various other projects. Our recent partnership with the ETA as shareholders is now to roll out qualifications throughout ETA in a South African framework. The first qualification that we will be releasing is a B.Ed teaching degree, qualified obviously here in South Africa as a 4-year teaching degree. And then the second qualification is a business science qualification that focuses on entrepreneurship. Those two qualifications will be available in the next 12 months. And to have access into this qualification, which is this university material, is we offer 2 school excellence certificates. We have 2 NQF level 4s, which are both matric certificates. The one sits at 28 credits and the one sits at 162 credits. They mean the same thing. However, the one on the left-hand side gives you direct access into a degree because it has 162 credits of material, which encompass maths literacy, English, as well as academic reading and writing, and it is a year-long qualification. This fitness instructors course, which gives you the access to go work at Virgin Active or work on a yacht, or it's anatomy, physiology, body mechanics, muscle mechanics. Once you complete this qualification in 4 months, it gives you access into a higher certificate, which is the equivalent of your first year of a degree. Once you complete this qualification, you can move into your degree program. What I'm trying to explain through this process is that we're not changing anything. We're just providing more options to students for various different reasons with regards to their studying process. We have had students that have taken on our Sci academic route as a hobby to push through alongside their Cambridge material for reasons I'm not 100% sure of, as they actually provide the same thing. At the end of the day, I've always asked the question to a parent is, what is the purpose of you studying towards your qualification? Is it for access? Do you want to study at Cambridge? You want to study at UCT? What do you want to study? And what is the shortest distance between those 2 points? Just a little bit more information on the ATHE, which holds the accreditation. The ATHE is regulated by Ofqual, which lists all the qualifications in the United Kingdom, so you can go onto them and have a look at them. If you understand where this qualification sits, the ATHE allows for conferred qualifications from anything from a International Access Qualification all the way through to MBA level, which is a level 9 on our national qualification framework. So it holds a whole variation of qualifications. It is not an exam board assessor, which is quite interesting. So in the United Kingdom, you'll obviously have the big exam boards, being Oxford themselves, Cambridge, and then Pearson is another big exam board. The ATHE is not a high-stakes exam board, but it is still a conferring board which is able to confer status with regards to academic progression as well as going into tertiary education. In the South African context, back to our ETA qualifications, they are accredited through the CAT-CETA. In South Africa, there's a description coming shortly with regards to how our national qualification framework is built up. But in our country, our CETAs are our only vocational qualification offerers at the moment. In the old days, we used to have TVET colleges and BTEC degrees. They no longer exist. You're either now higher education or you're vocational. A large qualification board for the CETA is something called the QCTO, and they house most of the qualifications. The CAT-CETA itself is responsible for culture, arts, tourism, hospitality, sports centre, education, and the training authority. So the qualification that we have that sits at 164 credits comes through the CAT-CETA and is fully accredited as an FET qualification, which means it is the equivalent of a matric. The level 4 is, once the level 4 is awarded, no different to Cambridge, no different to Pearson, and no different to the CAT-CETA, it is sent to SACWA for verification, and on verification you get a document that states that this qualification is linked on this part of the National Qualifications Framework, and these are the credits that it's bearing. That allows you access into tertiary institutions. And this same process is done for Cambridge, as well as any other international exam board. Here's a bit of an explanation, more sort of graphically depicted. So Umalusi governs schooling. The only recognized schooling body for Umalusi is CAPS. So Cambridge itself is not registered in the National Qualifications Framework. They just have an understanding with the universities. And more importantly, when you SACWA their qualifications, it generally states that you're at a level 4. So Umalusi is the only governing body here, and then you've got the Council for Higher Education. That governs everything from 5 until 10. You'll see that a school exiting qualification sits at an NQF level 4. Your bachelor's degree sits at 7. Quite interesting about the UK is that the UK does not have a honours qualification. It doesn't have an honours year. All of their qualifications are generally honours degrees. So you will find that if a student decides to study with us all the way through to the end of their UK qualification, their first 2 years at 120 credits takes 12 months, and you generally find that their last year can take up to 18 months. The reason it takes up to 18 months is the qualification exited at NQF level 7 in the UK, which equals to an NQF level 8 here in South Africa, which generally is an honours degree. Teaching qualifications are now going to be governed at a 4-year process, and we'll also look at becoming out at a level 8 qualification versus a level 7. General BComs in South Africa and Bachelor of Arts degrees all sit at level 7, which obviously makes it quite interesting when you start looking at UK-based qualifications as an entrance form of assessment. The progress opportunities that we have is that we obviously allow for students to migrate into either the international option by getting an international degree or integrating back into the South African context. A simple version would be that a student decides at the age of 16 to do their vocational school exit, and they're going to do it in business. That qualification takes a year. When they finish, their material's marked and they get their qualification back. And now they decide they want to study at higher education. If a student decides to go that route, they will not be able to study at a government institution. They'll only be able to study at a private institution. The reason for that is that government universities, and I mean like UCT, TUK, Stellenbosch, etc., they require you to do a second language. We don't offer that second language. However, the application process for anybody in a private institution, and that's the whole Stadio grouping, which includes Edinburgh University, Edinburgh College, Varsity College, Vega, Da Vinci Institute, Red and Yellow, Eduvos, Pearson, etc. They don't require it, and these qualifications have already been mapped into those higher institutions. So once again, from a perspective of a parent wanting their child to go to a traditional university such as UCT, then I generally suggest that you go through the IGCSEs, AS levels, etc. Going into an international university, international acceptance of those students, it sits on their requirement list, and generally speaking, 99% of the time, for middle-tier universities in the UK, you would like an international access qualification. If you decide you want to go to Cambridge or Oxford, then you're looking at getting 5 A stars and then progressing into those institutions. What it does allow for on the ability of speeding up the qualification is allows us to build more time with the students on progression routes into profession. Sandra will talk to you about that, specifically around our Junior to Giants program and how we encompass this form of education into profession creation. Here's a simple example of the progression route if a student decides that they want an international qualification. They'll do their foundation block with us, they'll do level 4 with us, and they'll do level 5 with us. Level 4 and 5, and the costing of these qualifications is no different to the school fees that you pay. So you'll do your school fee, you'll do your school fee, you'll do your school fee, and then in your third year, which is the top up, an example of a university, Anglo-Ruskin University, the only other university based in Cambridge, it's Cambridge University and Anglo-Ruskin, also very well known for their teaching qualification. This cost here is generally £3,000 online. If you decide to go on campus and live there, it'll be a little bit more expensive, but that roughly equates to the same amount as a final year in a private institution. The costings for this qualification will generally be about 20% 20% cheaper than school fees in your final year of AS levels. And the reason for that is that there's predominantly one educator teaching the core competencies of these subjects versus having 11 teachers teaching 11 different subjects. So it is it is paramountly different. However, once again, this qualification can also be done through distance-based. So it's not necessarily only an online campus opportunity. And we have had students that have done dual qualifications and done this part-time by themselves. Here's a further list of all of the entities that we already have signed up agreements with for those students that are interested of studying abroad. What is interesting is that we do have some universities like Northwood University, which is based in Michigan, which is an American allowance for further studies. And then you'll see that these are mostly middle-tier university. Sutherland University, which is also on the list, is the only other university that's based in the heart of London. And it's a good institution for students that would like to also progress into master's qualifications. Because you've studied the first 2 years through an international institution, you also are able to obtain funding if you decide to study on campus for your final year. I'm going to allow for questions and answers after Sandra has just spoken to you about the Junior to Giants program. Thanks, Sandra.
Great, thank you. Is my mic on? Can all hear. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I'm so excited to be here tonight. So welcome firstly to all the parents who are here with us in the room, and then also to everybody online. And the reason why today is such an exciting day, if you follow us on social media, you would have seen our videos about Junior to Giant and what we've been getting up to. And so tonight is about the launch of Junior to Giant in our campuses. We've decided to roll it out campus at a time, Imhoff being our first one. And so tonight I'm just going to share a little bit about what our program entails, the framework surrounding that, and then also to understand that because it's in its infancy, we expect that it's going to evolve to be so much more. If you understand who Generation or what we stand for in education, Generation Schools, we focus on education through to profession. So we look to this program to fill the gaps that we are now seeing that naturally forms part of the education system. And this program aims to equip our students with real-life working experience and understanding, business acumen, and work readiness in order to propel them into their line of work one day. So just to start about what tonight is, our mission is very simple. We can move on. So basically this is a program that bridges the theory of education with the reality of profession. It creates a framework around what this actually looks like. The excitement of this process is that we have now just started the program 3 to 4 months ago, and we've piloted it, and we have successfully put through the first 6 interns, and they are all getting ready to graduate and move on to their internship. So this program has just created structure and framework around what that looks like, and what we have learned is that actually there needs to be a huge form of enrichment before we place students in their internships. The why of this program is quite obvious for us. It's bridging the gap between theory and reality. So we are looking to facilitate practical acquisition of skills and knowledge in the different industries, and that is key to understand that we place our students into different industries despite having them feel as if, you know, one day I know exactly what I want to be. What this program allows for is to place them in the different industries so that they gain a lot of different experience, and what some of our interns will already tell you is they know what they definitely don't want to do, and that is a good thing. So we look to empower students through this program, and the importance of a program such as this is what we're seeing is the development of confidence. So taking what you've learned through your school journey, but now allowing them to practice the confidence to apply their skills in the real working world. Okay, so how do we get there? So a lot of work has been spent here to try to understand what does this need to look like. A very important part of this process is that the student applies for this position. So it doesn't mean that you belong to our school group that you automatically just get into the program. It's an applied for position, which culminates into a 3-month to 1-year onboarding process. And what that looks like is we create that interview process. We put you through a job application. We share a bit about what this would look like. And in this campus specifically, what it would look like is it supplements what the child is or the student is already doing in terms of their education. So it doesn't take away from the class day. It supplements and adds to it. Okay. Again, creating a framework to an internship possibility for them. Okay, just a little bit about the process. We open this internship program to 16 years and older. Okay, there is two parts to this. We've had our pilot group go through the process where they are permanently employed from Monday to Friday. It's an 8 to 5 job. There is enrichment, but also real working in the cafe, running our bridge, which is our code-shared office working space at our head office. They share the space, they run it as they would a business, and they gain their valuable experience there. When we do it in the campuses, that looks a little different. As I mentioned, it would supplement their current studies. So we start the process by just understanding their vocational interests. So we put them through a series of assessments which understands where do we want to be, and then we place them in everywhere else, just so that they understand what actually is out there in terms of career paths. For students who have completed their studies and now would like to apply for the position, the same process entails. It follows through with an interview, and then they can opt to actually come to our head office, which is the bridge, that's in Sandown. And in the absence of being able to relocate, we are networking our internship possibilities here in our community here. Okay. So there is two parts to it. You could be finished your studies and wanting to apply, and then also into the school and wanting to supplement what you're already doing. Okay, before we get to student accountability, when supplementing, there are prerequisites to finishing this program. And what that looks like is weekly, the student would be put on master classes in certain aspects to internship. One we find very important is professional etiquette. How do we present ourselves? Conflict resolution or conflict in the workplace, effective communication around that. Those sorts of themes follow through for a week. The student would then be asked to take part in a mentorship session where we would reflect based on what they've accumulated over that week. And then we would also ask them to place themselves in one of our business ventures in the school, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment, where they would actually apply themselves to a shift of work. So what that could look like is after hours, perhaps at our pump track on a Saturday morning, perhaps. The point of this is to actually apply the skills they are learning. Okay, so student accountability. It's very important that the student shows that they have gained something from this process. And what that looks like is we ask them to present a portfolio of evidence on what they have gained through the 3-month process. So it kind of, we're not saying it's a pass or fail, but you need to be able to show something that has been gained over this process. And obviously the things we look at is financial literacy, journaling, reflection, planning, nano courses, marketing, etc. They would then present that to our board around a table emulating a corporate space. And then they would go on to be to receive a graduation process certificate from that. Okay, so it's very important that through this process there is a natural ending, and after they have done the 3-month internship, they've showed evidence that they've accumulated knowledge and practical experience, we would then allow them to graduate. In future, we hope that we look to this course being accredited, that they could then add this to their credentials, it would form part of their CV, and they could then, after the graduation process, go forward to open themselves up to the internship possibilities that we put on the table for them. And again, we're working very hard with external stakeholders, some of them to the likes of SMG, we have Denim, we've got Capitec Bank, we've got Club Mykonos, Resi Group, the Resi Group property, we've got many different stakeholders that we are solidifying relationships with so that we can launch our juniors into their careers to become giants. So they would then be placed on these internships with these different external stakeholders, and from there the whole idea is job culmination. Okay, just very quickly, the team, it's myself, it's Jevron Epstein, we've got Marisa who governs all our mentors, she works from our head office, and then what we are looking to, which is exciting part, is have our campus representative, which you can move on. We have, I've been working very closely with Kirsty Trump is our campus representative for the Junior to Giant program here at Generation Schools Imhoff. She'll be working very closely with myself, as well as Marisa and Jevron, to make sure that our students here have all the possibilities as we do back at head office. So just some roles and responsibilities, which isn't too important, but she would be your go-to person if you have any questions about what this might look like. Okay, and then finally, Very important to see the faces. I've got two of our students here, or our interns, that have been put through this 3-month process, successfully put through 6. We've just signed up our 7th intern, and now as we launch, we're excited to see how this grows momentum into our campuses. And I'd like to invite Thomas and Cody up here very quickly just to share anything they'd like to. I think it's important to see real-life examples of what a program such as this can actually do for students. So Thomas, thank you.
Hello, I'm Thomas Mark. I've been in the Junior Giant program since June of this year. Initially, I went to the Resi Investment Group and I interned with their team that manages their property holdings and their rental. I learned how to do a CMA, how to do a market analysis, and how to do accurate financial forecasting and financial planning. Since then, I've been moved back to the Bridge at head office. I've been working with the coffee team and with Kyle, the other intern who's currently managing the Bridge. And I have used what I've learned at Resi to put together my own presentation for a property that I want to develop, and we are having a meeting with an investor next week.
Hi, hello, my name is Cody. I started with the Junior to Giants program as well when it started up. I've met amazing people. I've made incredible connections. I've had incredible experiences as well. One such that Sandra brought up earlier with Capitec, where we pitched an idea to Capitec Bank to introduce students to the financial world from growing up also at high school. And it was such an amazing, it's an experience that I will never forget, and I use every day to stand up in front of highly educated and seniors who know what they're doing. Has truly made me feel like, okay, I've got this, I can pitch this idea, and I built confidence in myself. I also started my coffee company here at the Imhoff campus called Jane Brew, and I've learned a lot. I found all gaps in my experience that you don't learn at school, and it's broadened my knowledge greatly, and I've greatly appreciated it.
Great, thank you guys. It takes a lot. Do you see the confidence I was referring to? So 3 months ago, that would have been a lot harder than it is now. So they've learned great confidence in their abilities and who they are as individuals. So that sort of concludes what we'd like to present. Just to reiterate the fact that this is changing nothing much, but adding to. So we're supplementing what we already have, and we are identifying gaps, and all we're doing are meeting those needs. Okay, so we'd like to open up for some questions. Jeb, if you'd like to welcome back. Any questions regarding what Jevron presented or the Junior to Giant program?
I'm going to sound like I'm shouting. Hello? Can you hear me? So I've been following your social media and this exciting partnership you've got with the Chef's Warehouse Fledglings program. And is this making a difference? No. And, oh, okay, sorry. All right, fine. So it's a two-part question. Why would you put students who are not interested in, for example, becoming a chef in front of the likes of Chef's Warehouse, only to work out that that's not what they're interested in? And completely separate but dual question, it would seem that this program partners quite nicely with your SCI program in terms of the business management aspect of things. So you're pulling the students out for, say, 3 months at a time, full day orientation, working. Where does that fit in, and can it fit into, for example, the SCI business management program, and could we qualify out with both?
Okay, so to start with the first question, it's open, can you hear me? To start with, and we discuss this in our, because we emulate business and corporate space, so we have our weekly meetings. And what I sit with is a lot of the time students either don't know what they want to do, or they're very direct on what they want to do. And so we focus on these 3 months being a practice space. So what that might look like is, specifically I'm thinking of an intern that comes to mind who wants to do something in graphic design and very creative in the arts, and that's where she needed to be. At 16, she knew what she needed to be to be doing and gaining skills in. What we then did is we threw her into into a management with mentorship, into a management position where now she needed to manage the Bridge Cafe. Skills she didn't actually possess and didn't really want to go there. What we've then found is that she developed in those areas where she didn't feel she had the confidence to manage people, to manage seniors to her. She actually built in those skills. So the reason why we actually don't shut off any option for them, we're using these 3 months to develop skills that they aren't fully aware that they might even possess. So that's what I mean. We throw them into every different area. There is also magic that happens when you place somebody in a position where they're not really passionate about. What do we learn in that space when we're actually forced to draw that out? We have to start something and finish it. And what is it in that space that we can learn about ourselves? Because we all know that going through life, there are going to be situations or work or jobs that you're going to take that you're not really passionate about, but you need to follow through. So those are the personal growth aspects to this program that we try to instill, and we try to make a little uncomfortable. Does that answer the question?
Do you then prepare them and only then put them in front of their vocation? So once so say for example you've put them through the 3-month program at the Bridge, you've challenged them in various areas, and only then, say for example they're interested in being a chef or a graphic designer,
yes,
then you put them in front of an agency or a or a restaurant of sorts. So you pre-prepare them
absolutely
before you. Okay, so the students that you've had interviewing with Chef's Warehouse, for example, have gone through already this 3-month program to prepare them.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we learned very quickly that there's a huge part of enrichment that needs to happen before we put a student out onto an internship. And I used this example earlier. We had our students come first day on the job and sit down at the boardroom table and ask, what's for lunch? Not realizing that not everywhere do you get a lunch, snack and lunch provided. And so these are skills they needed to actually be aware of and learn. I can think of many others. So we first have that part, and then we set them up to go off.
Work than I've got time for example, you know.
Yes. So we try and do all of that in that first 3 months, understanding how do we actually put an email together, tone and text, all of that we've had to sit with quite a bit. So we try and upskill them before we send them off. So it's not just sending them off and now they're acquiring all those skills, which is awesome to do, but not all the opportunities allow for that. So we try and equip them as much as we can.
Great, thank you. And the SCI program?
Sai, are you asking about the full-time 3-month option, or what? Could you reiterate your question?
In my opinion, a lot of what you're talking about in terms of this mentorship and internship could tie in quite beautifully, especially into the business aspect of the business management course that's offered under SCI. You can see that as being quite a good pairing. How does that work? If that was an interest, is that an offering?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I think that's where it started with the vocational exits. We understood that with that, we needed to pair understanding and getting that student ready to go and place themselves in the business world. So the two work very closely together. Again, that can look very different for every child. We've had students who have the capacity to take on something full-time and study part-time. What we do say is while you're studying, what works really well is that you take on the junior to giant part-time, enriching yourself, gaining those skills, focusing on your studies, and then after that we'll put you out. Again, the two don't have to go right after each other. You don't finish a 3-month program and then immediately have to start the internship. You could complete your studies, for example, and then go on to take up an intern position.
You know, so in a lot of the diagrams, for example, I watched the presentation from last night, it appears like you get to a crossroads and you must choose SCI or Junior to Giants or Cambridge. You know, so that's where I'm interested to see how they dovetail with each other and opportunities.
So I think that a bit of like reflection onto the curriculum. So we're all aware that Cambridge is the most challenging curriculum that there is, and it is internationally the best curriculum. Because of the amount of subjects that you need to do, there is actually no real time for those enrichment qualifications, specifically when you're preparing for examinations. The enrichment generally comes when you complete your qualification and you go to this institute that has provenance, and you've arrived on the basis of studying throughout Cambridge. Because of the vocational qualification, I use the word vocational because it's non-examinable, but it's actually a qualification. Because of the business qualification, it allows for enrichment. So what we've built into those classrooms is the like of masterclass. We've built into etiquette and professionalism, academic reading and writing, because the qualification isn't a construct of passing school, it's a qualification of a university acceptance or entrance. And it's because of that it's been quite difficult. But to answer the question, in our schools you'll have a vocational route. I'm going to use the word vocational, but you'll have the SCI stream, which encompasses International Access Qualifications as well as vocational qualifications. You will have Cambridge, and you'll have Junior to Giants for both. An example might be Elijah if he decides that he would like to join the Junior to Giant program next year. A good example is Cody. Cody did IGCSEs and then AS levels and then joins the Junior to Giant program. He's no different off to Thomas. Thomas decided to finish school earlier at 16 and focus. But the difference between them is that if Elijah and Cody decide they would like to go to UCT next year, they can. If Thomas decides he'd like to go to UCT, he's got to get his degree first at the age of 19, and then he can go back to UCT. So there are pros and cons for each qualification, but they all culminate at that fact of profession. So where Generation Schools wants to get to, where we finish fixing the internet and all of the small things in the school which need to be fixed, which I will, because I've heard that now, is that we want to focus on the profession. And then to focus on the profession will be the Junior to Giants program. But we've specifically selected students that have done both courses. I'll have a debate with Elijah sometime with regards to accountancy. Cambridge University doesn't recognize accountancy as a qualification. It recognizes economics. So you can't be a CA or an ACCA if you're in the UK. If you decide to you study economics first, then you leave Cambridge and you do a qualification, because it's all different. It's like all these different niches that you have. Then some people will say, well, I'd rather be a CFA than a CA or a CCA or an ACCA. So what we allow for in that professional blanket is for students to engage with that content and then have those 3 months as a process. And then what we generally do is we sign them on. A good example about the individuals that signed up with the test kitchen fledglings is on the first night, a student cuts through his whole hand and needs 7 stitches. And it's like, that's real. But that student has, they work from 10 to 10 every day. 6 days a week, 10 o'clock in the afternoon to 10 o'clock in the evening. 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the evening. And they love it. And, we've had phone calls, they'll definitely look at be given full-time employment. But those are success stories. We've also had stories where we'll send students off for an internship and they hate it. And they'll get a badge when they finish it. But they will complete it. So it just allows for that process. But here we go.
I think you answered that. What, did he? Does that answer your question? Awesome. From the interweb. Great question. And a similar question came up earlier when we were presenting to our educators. What happens if one of our students wants to go work in an NGO, community work? And what this looks like, again, firstly, our internships, we're trying to gain access to all different industries. So absolutely, yes, it is not just business focused. However, there is an element to business which you will understand once completing this. And elements of business are used in any space, even in the NGO space. You need to understand what it means to run a business, or just the professional etiquette of interacting with other humans. So yes, the answer to that question is yes, there will be internships that look into that, and that this goes to any industry. It's not just business or entrepreneurship. There is a whole nother wing to this, which is our Gen Ventures, which does look hugely into entrepreneurship. That is the heart of what we do. Or what we'd like to forge with our students. However, this is for any sort of area.
So we do have partnerships in our program already with in the arts. So the Waterfront Theatre School is an example of a partnership where we have students that access that space from that point of view. When it comes to art and design, specifically around digital design, we do partner with agencies, large agencies with regards to the integration into those workforces. And then with regards to like art galleries, etc., we've had conversations with them. And the conversation that we've got back specifically around First Thursdays is that once First Thursdays are back up and running and the students are ready for that, they would go and spend some time interning at those spaces to actually understand the cosmopolitan variance of an art gallery, and what it's not just a space where you will go and purchase art, but it's a space where people meet, which I never knew, which I now know. So I think it is very interesting, and those are all elements. We do have a personality profile assessment that we do run for our students that also gives an understanding of where those students are with regards to where their strengths and weaknesses are, and it is also an opportunity for them to not do well. We also think that it's an opportunity for every student that comes into the Junior to Giants program or goes this route needs to do amazingly well. It's better for them to learn up front what they don't like than studying something and spending a long period of time doing something that they don't enjoy. So we do have those cases as well.
Good.
So yeah, in the SCI route, you have two splits. You have the business route and you have the sports route. So in the sports route, you have two further splits. You have the fitness instructor's qualification and the FET, which is a school exit certificate. The fitness instructor course, what the students do is they generally study in the morning. They'll do theory and they'll do anatomy, physiology, body mechanics, muscles. Then they do outside work. There's a huge practical component to it. They spend times going to investigate different forms of machinery. Last week they went to go look at the 3D body scanner at the Sports Science Institute that's able to scan you for 30 seconds and bring up your whole body mass index, etc., etc. Those students also then do sporting, they do coaching, they spend a lot of time in the gym, understanding personal training. The FET qualification, which is a little bit longer, which is the year program, constitutes maths and English. So it's lots of classroom time, lots of written work with regards to the science around the fitness industry and sports and training. And the students that decide to do the business route in their space, they'll generally have a day that's made up of working through their different modules. So that time is specific. They have engagement time, so they have times like masterclasses. There's in the business game, in the business sector, there's an Easy Equities competition where they get to download the Easy Equities demo account, which I'm part of that competition, and they get 100,000 Rand, digital Rand with invest, and they speak about cryptocurrencies and global trends. They talk about poor marketing, good marketing, and the masterclass sessions have become quite enriching, which the students engage with. That then also becomes available to the students at that campus, which we've trialed it at first, for students that are doing the IGCSE and AS level route. They're able to obtain an opportunity to go and join those masterclasses if it's something as an enrichment program. And generally, it's speaking, it'll mirror the same day as the rest of the students. They'd have a full-on calendar, full-on workload, and they'd be here. If a student, for argument's sake, leaves the school, and I've had that question before, how would they complete their studies? That course will be available and open to them until the day that they finish their assessment. And we make it available for a 10-year period. So for whatever reason, if the student, because we wouldn't be able to disadvantage the child by you leaving the school and then another school not offering the qualification. So we give the student access for that course for another 10 years at no fee until they finish their assessment, their final assessment.
Good. Any further questions? Anything online? Nothing. Competition time. Great.
All right. Well, this is just for somebody who wants to ask another question. So the first one, if we're going to give one of these cool Sci Institute tangrams to somebody who would like to ask another question. All right, fantastic. Well, a tangram is a mathematical game that a whole lot of shapes fit into a square.
Okay, I'll ask questions because it's always important to understand what people understood afterwards. How many credits are there in a school exiting qualification? How many? Just raise of hands. How many credits are there? You've heard the story before. It's almost no. Let's give it someone else a chance. How many credits are there in a school exiting qualification that allows you access into higher education? You get the prize. But you didn't raise your hand, so I take the prize back. Okay, are there any other further questions? Are you sure? No, Mr. Evans, I'm watching him. I knew there was going to... I'm just making 100% sure. Carl, no questions? That's good. For now. Chelsea, you can get a prize because you've been here the whole day. Okay, and...
Sure. Okay, so let's say, let's ask some more questions, junior to giant. How old do you have to be to apply to the process? Wait, hands? I saw a hand here. Okay. Both of them, well done. And the last prize. Who is our internet service provider?
Fired. There we go. I just want to say one more thing with regards to the ETA qualification. So Jean de Jong, Jean de Jong is a South African rugby player. He played for Western Province. He still plays for the Stormers. He also played for South Africa. He plays for Wasps overseas, and he studied through ETA. And Jean de Jong's got a very interesting story that he would never have played professional rugby if he didn't go to ETA, because he would have just been missed out on the whole process. So it's quite interesting from a professional sports perspective. As a parents often say, well, if my child goes through an ETA program, all they're going to do is be able to be a professional sportsman. That's not the case. If you go through the ETA program, there's a whole bunch of different things. You can become a wellness coach like Sandra, because there is a wellness element to it. Yes, it's a wellness element. There is the professional sports coaching. So whether it's any sport that you have into swimming, from any sport. They also look at the business route. So there's a definitive business route, which is their business science qualification. They do have a whole offspin with regards to the wellness qualification that allows you to go into physiotherapy, etc., as a postgraduate study from that process. And they also offer the teaching qualification. So that is just a little bit of extra information on the ETA qualification in terms of the access for students into employment, as well as into further studies. I think that's enough questions for today. Any other questions?
Okay, just one more question from one of our viewers. There's a question around the fees. Are they the same? What's the difference?
I think you just turn your phone off. Okay, so from a fee perspective, so the qualification to exit the schooling route of SCI, it is a little bit more cheaper than the current schooling structure, and that's because of the amount of subjects. There are only 6 subjects in the SCI qualification, which means it's generally about 20% cheaper than the existing school fees. And if you decide to do it completely virtually, there is a vocational school offering for this as well. That being said, we do recommend that we built the Junior to Giants program specifically around creating professional opportunities for these students. So there's one thing having the qualification, it's the next thing about how does it work and what do I do with the qualification. But that is to answer the question. Those fees haven't been published yet. They'll be published on Friday, which is tomorrow. It's 2 days away. I had a little child recently, not me personally, my wife. So 6 days of no sleep, so I do apologize.
Good. No more questions. Anybody else? Last? Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Obviously, if there are any further questions, you can contact us. Have a beautiful evening further and go well.